right.
All right. Okay, so
We're back.
This is podcast number 3, and we are on our pirate radio barge off the coast of the White Cliffs of Dover right now.
Right, mate? Yeah, that was pretty shabby.
Well, that was pretty good. Hey, I'm going to open up a beverage.
Okay, listen to it. Get close.
Sorry, I know this isn't professional, but what are you going to do?
It's only sparkling water.
No, it's beer.
Yeah, sparkling water with
I
alcohol
actually
added.
wasn't going to drink today because my sponsor told me that if I was really going to make the program work, I couldn't drink.
And what's he know about the 11th step? Never mind. Okay. Treading on thin ice there, buddy.
No, let's not make this weird. Okay.
All right, so today, video games. We're talking video games.
Yeah, I got a title picked out for this podcast. It's going to be,
Let's hear it.
I'm going to call it, Are Video Games Addicting? It's a rhetorical question. Of course they are.
Okay.
And we have proof.
I like the sound of that one. So yeah, man, when we were first talking about doing this, I think the initial concept was let's talk about video games that we couldn't put down, we were young or whatever. And as I started sort of remembering how this addiction started, honestly, this started, no joke, with that little handheld football game that was just dots.
Sure.
Do you remember that thing?
Yeah, it wasn't. I think it was a Mattel. Mattel made it.
Could be Mattel, yeah.
Well, there was two. There was the Mattel one and the ColecoVision one.
I don't remember which one we had, but we had one. And losing sleep playing that game.
Well, 100%. And they came out with a series. They came out with like baseball. They came out with like basketball, but football was the first one. Yeah. And I remember the big thing with the football one, and again, golly, this has really opened up some memories. I wasn't even thinking we were going to go back this far. But one of them, because the player would catch the ball. And again, if you don't know what we're talking about, do not even think of this as anything other than...
Yeah.
We're talking like LED lights.
Little red blips. Right. Look at one single individual dot.
If you ever wonder why individuals in their 50s have amazingly strong thumbs...
This game was definitely responsible.
Yeah. This is it. Because, and anyway...
I don't even know. I should have researched to find out what that thing was actually
called.
It
was by Mattel. I know that. Yeah. There was one by Mattel, and I think there was one. I don't think it was ColecoVision. I think it was by Coleco. And the one Coleco, the player that had the ball could run backwards, and the one on the Mattel could only run in one direction.
I must have had the Coleco then, because I remember that was my strategy.
And I'm going to look it up real quick.
Okay, that was my strategy when I got the ball as the quarterback, because I would run backwards a little bit, and then one side or the other, and then the other team would sort of open up a hole, and then if you were quick, you could zip through that hole and score touchdowns or whatever. So. Yeah,
that's it. You take my word for it. I can just open an image here real quick.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm still very... In fact, I saw one not long ago for sale at like Walmart or something. Of course, it's a redone version of it, but
I just did the search, and you could get the classic for $50.
$50,
yeah. Rare vintage 1978 Coleco Electronic Football, and the other one was Mattel. Okay. So,
but anyways, for me, that's where it started. That was And
we had a Pong game.
Oh, Pong, yeah.
Yeah.
I it's funny because when I was growing up, my mom always said she didn't like us playing at the arcade because she said it was all run by the mob. My mom's from the Northeast, she grew up in Boston, and she's like, the mob owns all, you can't play, give them quarters and whatever. So,
wow.
We still wanted to play, of course. So
I wonder if it was that like bullshit, or would you think
dude, I have no clue.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no clue.
Because we went to the arcade like freaking crazy.
Yeah, I think it was just my mom's hysteria,
Yeah,
whatever.
Probably so.
But all right, so then when we get into the arcades, what were you playing? What was your faves?
Okay, so by the way, I did search out, and I didn't write them down because it was too long, but arcade games. But my jam, the one that because and again, I'm sure people listening to this, they know exactly what we're talking about. But for those that are even kind of like what arcade, what kind of crazy word? Well, you can find arcades mostly like in the mall. There was arcades in the mall that and probably where I grew up, there was maybe like about 5 or 6 arcades that were within distance, and money wasn't easy to come by. You try to get like $5. You know what I mean? If you get $5,
if I got $5, I was golden.
You were there for hours, right?
Yeah.
But these games were set up. They were quarter eaters, so they were definitely designed for you to only play for a few minutes, like maybe, and if you mastered it, you maybe could play a little longer.
Yeah.
And there were people that would get to the point where, like games like Pac-Man or whatever, where they could play for hours. They got so good at it they could play for hours. But most people were not that good. And but my arcade was at the putt-putt, like the literal
putt-putt, yeah.
not miniature golf, but it was a putt-putt, right?
Okay, yeah.
And at the time, I didn't really think much about it, but it might as well have been like a murder room. It was just, you know what I mean? It was disgusting.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but anyway, my jam was Galaga. I could play Galaga for hours. Yeah. And I had a friend that played it, a couple friends that played it, and not that we need to get into it too much, but if you were to like look it up on YouTube, there's a way to actually, and I didn't do this every time, but there was a way to actually make it so where there was only certain, because Galaga was kind of like a knockoff of Galaxian, which was a knockoff of Space Invaders.
Right.
And there was a way, if you left a certain number of the bugs or whatever you want to call them, the alien invaders at the top, you could leave certain ones up there. And if you allowed them to spiral down, they spiral down and reset at the top over and over and over again.
Right.
And if you allowed them to do that, there was one time, it maybe take like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, they would spiral down and not drop bombs. And if you killed them when they were not dropping bombs,
you got way extra points.
No. That for the rest of the game, they would never drop bombs.
Oh, no kidding.
They never drop bombs again.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So what you could do is, if you did that...
Explains why I suck so bad at that game.
Well, and so, but I could actually play it without doing that, and I could play it for like 16, 18 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And the only time I really ever once played it for like 16 or 18 hours was I was working at a pizza place. First job, minimum wage, whatever. And they had a tabletop. A tabletop is a sit down.
Right.
And I was there with my boss, and we were waiting for some delivery that, I don't know, we were out of pizza dough or sauce or something.
Right.
Who the hell knows? And we had to wait for the truck to arrive, and the pizza place closed like at 10 on a Tuesday, and she was like, "Hey, do you mind sticking around? I don't feel safe here, some crap alone." And I was like, "Sure." I sat there and played one quarter, and it ended up being like 16 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I was never that good at any of those
only
games.
game I was.
Yeah.
Be clear.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember I worked at a bowling alley, and this is the kind of places where you found these little, like mini arcades, right?
By the way, I worked at a bowling alley once.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked at a bowling alley.
Horrible job.
It was in high school. Yeah, it was terrible. I was a porter, and this bowling alley, I want to say, gosh, I can't remember exactly. I want to say they had 40 lanes on one side and 40 on the other. So it was big. This was a big bowling alley. And I was a porter, and so basically I was assigned to one side, right? I had to go clean tables and pick up beer cans. And
I was a porter, by the way.
It was a common job, I guess.
Not like they're going to make a 16-year-old manager.
Yeah, exactly. Well, little do they know. But anyway, yeah. So we had a little arcade there, and we played a lot. And one of the guys he was a couple years older than me, and I idolized this guy because he had a 67 Camaro.
Of course.
And it had the big tires on the back and all the fancy engine, and it was a cool car, and he was a cool guy. All the girls liked him, and then he would come in, and he would play just about any game he played. He was good, but that was one of them. Galaga, he crushed it, man. He was one of those guys that would play for hours.
Galaga, really?
Yeah. Right. But Centipede was another one. Mm-hmm. Centipede. I was all over Centipede. I loved Centipede, man. That was a good one. And then Joust. I just always loved the concept of Joust because that was one of the first games I played that had a constant screen, right? So you could go off the left side and come back on the right side. Right. That was one of the first games that I played that was like that. Previous, it was like whatever, Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong or any of that kind of stuff. So, which was another one, Donkey Kong. Totally hooked, man. Yes. Totally hooked. Loved that game.
Well, and also, not to overanalyze it, but like Joust was like an Atari game, and and Donkey Kong was a Nintendo game, and there's all these different makers, whatever, and they all had their own look, and but that wasn't Midway, but Williams had like Defender, which was amazing. Yep. I remember the games that were like really just people. Well, and you already named a couple of them. Like Centipede was like probably top 10, right? Yeah. Centipede would be in there. Asteroids would be in there. Space Invaders would probably be in there. I don't know, maybe. Pac-Man would be in there. Miss Pac-Man. And those were all games that I would occasionally slide a quarter in. You know what I mean? But yeah, Centipede was one of my favorites. Missile Command.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's always a game that I liked a lot, but I was terrible at it.
Missile Command?
Yeah, man, I loved it, but I was just terrible. I just loved those big, those
great concept.
Yeah,
well, as soon as like stuff started buzzing over the top and like like a plane or a UFO, and it would dropping and things were coming a little too fast for me to keep up. But
it's funny that you mentioned Space Invaders. I can clearly remember that being the very first arcade game that I ever played. Space Invaders. So we lived about.
Well, it really was it probably was like the first mass-produced next to Pong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. We we lived about, I want to say about 3 miles from a Kmart. And I used to ride my bike to Kmart and look at records. I was buying vinyl at the time. And there was a Pizza Hut in that parking lot. And every once in a while we would get treated and go to Pizza Hut, But for whatever reason, we were in there and they had this game, and I was clueless, I don't know, and I saw somebody else playing it, and I was like, what? And I just thought that game with the hyperspace thing was the coolest thing ever, man. When you disappear and then show up somewhere else. I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
I know.
But yeah, that got me hooked. And then also you mentioned Defender. That's the name. My friend that I was telling you about that I idolized, his name was Dean. That guy, he beat everybody at Defender. He was like George Costanza on the Frogger thing, and he had the high score on the game for like
Frogger was another one, by the way. Frogger was, not one of my favorites, but I play it.
Yeah, I played it, yeah. But then you mentioned something on the phone to me the other day I thought was great that I'd forgotten all about. But back in the day, if you were waiting, you whatever, man, you mowed grass, you washed somebody's car, you did whatever to get a couple of bucks, and you go swap out your dollars for quarters, and then you run over to the arcade, and somebody's playing the game that you want to play, whatever it is. Gosh, shit, man. So the way you held your spot in line is you slid a quarter up onto the screen.
Yes, or on the top.
On the top, where it was, yeah. And then so there was always this line of quarters, and somehow we went on the honor system. We knew whose quarter was whose, and so. But another interesting one is that we had in my neighborhood, there was a 7-Eleven, and it was about maybe 10 or 12 houses down from my house, and they had a pinball machine. And we would go there. We would play pinball every chance we got. And I was terrible. I was never any good at pinball, man. I drained that damn thing like nothing, but I love to play.
Pinball was just a whole. I mean, that was a whole other thing. Yeah, pinball was one of those ones where it added definitely a layer. I mean, I'm sure if anybody out there plays a lot of pinball, they would disagree, but it adds a layer of luck. The ball has to roll a certain way, go off a bumper a certain way. Yeah. But yeah, and you're mentioning something that actually kind of resonates with me, in that we talk about arcades, but people need to understand that if you're, again, in the 80s. People put these machines. They were money making machines, and so you'd go to like a 7-Eleven or any convenience store, any gas and sip would have a line of like maybe 5 or 6, and also the ones we're naming, and I'm sure I'm leaving out a few. Yeah, those are the popular ones. But man, there was so much.
All kinds of little off-ball ones.
Oh yeah, garbage ones, man. I mean, they were fine. Yeah, and there were ones also. I mean, there were ones that I remember playing. I can no reason to name them, but there was ones I was like, oh, I really like this game, but it's just they're lost. Yeah,
lost to time. Yep.
Yeah, and then kind of going forward, and then we started getting into the console.
Yeah, I can remember very clearly getting my first. Well, I think as we talked about this on the phone the other day, like, for our youth, you had to do something to earn money. Right. I didn't get an allowance. Chores around my house were chores because we had to keep the house going. Right. It wasn't like, okay, you do chores, you get money. Yeah, you do chores and not get your butt kicked. That's what it came down to.
I could beg money, but it was low. It was low gain. Yeah.
But for the most part, you'd have to do something, mow grass or do something special, right? Yeah. And so there was all this effort and there was all this build up. Because once I get my $2 or whatever it is, I'm going to go and play, whatever.
Right. We're not going to save that shit.
Yeah. But then we get to the age that we're actually earning a paycheck. For me, it just happened to be that I was in the military. And then you can buy a console and you can play this thing at home. Mm-hmm. And even before I joined the military, there was an Intellivision. Oh, yeah. And my brother had an Intellivision. And
hated the controllers on television.
Yeah, but that's where we started playing Pong and tank battles, you know what I mean, where you bounce the...
Yeah, I had Atari,
Yep, he had that as well. Yeah. So, but then when you get your own console, I got my first Nintendo, and that was it, dude. It was a freaking downward slide from there.
Yeah, it's funny, so I never had a television. I had a friend who had a television, and he also had a... Commodore 64. Okay. And we played games on that. And there weren't any really games, definitely not on the Atari. I mean, there were games I liked, but, we talked about like games that kind of just occupied a lot of our time. Mm-hmm. And the Atari and so forth, and again, at the time I wasn't thinking this. I had fun with it. I would play it, but dude, I'm not playing Tank Battle for 16 hours. I'm just not.
Yeah, the hook's not there. Yeah.
Yeah, not there yet. I mean, they had Adventure, which I played, but that was probably your very. And by the way, Adventure was probably the very first RPG on anything, right? Okay. Yeah, but and barely.
Is that the one where the guy swing across the vine?
No, that's Pitfall.
Pitfall, that's the one.
Which was a good one.
Yeah,
by the way,
fun.
That was fun. But no, Adventure had the dragons that looked like seahorses. Yeah,
I don't remember that.
Dude. And like your sword was just like literally like an arrow, you know, and you were a dot.
Okay.
You know,
I don't remember that.
The machine didn't have a whole lot of power.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so and it's amazing because Activision came along. And we don't need to get into the history of the Atari. Google it. There's all kinds of stuff out there. But with that said, the programmers were paid pittance for what they did. They had a heavy control on the game market, and then I think some people left and formed Activision, which is still around today. And I guess so is Atari to a lesser extent, but they they were able to squeeze more out of that game, out of that console, right? And it was pretty much. I mean, if you talk about like something you could play multiple games, Atari really is the first console, but then it crashed. Right. And when it crashed, it was basically like a black hole for video games. I mean, I'm choosing my words here. It like sucked everything in, right? Right. For a while there wasn't anything.
Right.
So,
but then when Nintendo put out their first machine, that was huge.
I had it.
Yeah, that was huge.
Oh, sure, man. I was never like a full-on devotee of the Nintendo.
Same.
But I will say one thing about the Nintendo, and I know we talked about the Atari before, but the Nintendo really was kind of that pivot where it wasn't about putting a quarter in and getting 5 minutes or 3 minutes, but now you could sit down and spend hours and hours and hours playing games. And I mean that happened with computers too. I mean, like I mentioned, my friend with the Commodore 64. There were definitely games like Ultima, whatever, that we played.
Right. I know I had a Amiga 500, and
oh yeah, I remember that. I remember you having that.
Yeah. The first game that I ever played on there was actually a 100% text-based game. And
100%.
I played. This was when networking. It was before the internet. You networking. You had to do it over a phone line. So if you were on, you couldn't use the phone.
Right.
And so I had a friend that lived a couple miles away, and then little did we know there was a guy. When I was living in Long Beach at the time, and there was a guy that actually lived on a sailboat, and he set up this network, this local area network, and you could call this phone number and all that shit.
Right.
Yeah.
We joke about that now, but that was for real.
It was for real, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you could call in, and then multiple people could communicate.
Sure.
And it was limited, really, like 3 or 4 people, something. But it was totally a text-based game, and this text would come across, and then you would have to type in your whatever you would do, kind of a Dungeons and Dragons kind of a deal, or some like spy thing or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, and there are all kinds of things like I didn't ever do that. I mean, there were like things like Zork and whatever that were not networked, but I think things like MUDs or whatever they called them were.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Yeah, I don't even remember exactly the details because it was a very short period of time we played that. I got bored just because it wasn't interactive enough. Everything was happening really slowly. But yeah, then when I got the Nintendo, I played. Obviously, Mario was it was fun for a while. I remember. Sure. I wonder if it was in the first game or it was in the second Mario where you could start going down into the pipes.
That was, I don't know, I think that was the first Mario.
Yeah, I remember thinking that was kind of cool because it just brought you into this whole nother...
Right.
The screen changed and the colors changed and all that. So I thought that was kind of cool. But then, I'm probably a stereotypical example here, but Legend of Zelda is the first one that...
I was going to comment on that. I never got into Zelda.
Yeah, that one got me, and that's the first one where I was literally staying up all night because the story got me, and it was... You had a mission... Right. Like, I never felt like there was a mission with Mario. I know there was a mission. You had to go save the princess. But it was never really played into any... You did the same thing over and over, collecting coins and jumping on mushrooms or whatever.
Sure.
But in Zelda, they did a good job about reminding you were on this mission and you had to accomplish these things. And so that one roped me in big time.
I would say... I mean, again, I never got into Zelda. But I would say, like, let's say, for example, I had unlimited time and I was going to be on this planet for an unlimited length of time.
Yeah.
And I would probably go back and revisit the Zelda games only because it seems like something I would dig.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, and we haven't talked about this that much. And again, I almost hate to even mention it, but I go back and revisit some of the games I played that because you even mentioned, we're about ready to get into some of my like all-nighters. At the time, I remember thinking these are the most amazing games.
Yeah,
but now I go back and I'm kind of like, it's a little rough.
Yeah.
But Zelda, I know, like I could probably, I could probably force myself through.
Well, you know what it is? That was the first game that I can remember that you had dexterity challenges,
Right.
but you also had puzzles to solve. So
Right.
in Mario, it was all dexterity. You had to jump at the right time,
Right.
you had to shoot at the right time, whatever
Right.
it was. But this actually had puzzles that you had to solve, and they
Right.
weren't complicated. I
No.
remember thinking a couple of them took me a long time to figure out, but yeah, that's probably what got me. The
Yeah.
intellectual side of it, and because I like that brain work stuff. And,
Sure.
and that got me.
And also nowadays, I think they make games a lot more forgiving. Spawn points and whatnot. And
Oh yeah, dude. No, you started all the way back at the beginning.
There was some brutal shit.
There was, yeah.
And again, remember you're playing with a cartridge,
Yes.
So a lot of times there would be things where they give you codes that would tell you where you could allow you to restart.
Yep. Oh, I was writing codes down left and right, buddy.
Oh my god. Well, and when you talk about so for me, I had a friend and he had like a Commodore, and I think probably if there was games that I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be an all-nighter, there was like the Ultima series and things like that. But that was my first kind of dabbling with they were the first kind of role-playing games. And of course I didn't role play. I was just like trying to find the next thing to do. I wasn't sitting around calling myself like Gothor.
Yeah.
Never quite understood that, but and there's people out there I'm pretty sure that do.
Yeah, still do.
Yeah, but probably like my first a lot of times what I'll do is people talk to me about like, because I do play video games and they're like, where did it, what did you like, why did you like it, what kind of how did it affect you? And there are games that I remember playing, and again, it's somewhat retrospective, but I think at the time, even I was aware where I was like, okay, gaming is no longer going to be the same as it was yesterday. Now that I played this game, everything's changed, and
I'm going to guess that Wolfenstein was one of those games for you.
It probably, Wolfenstein was, but really, Wolfenstein was probably kind of the precursor to like Doom, and I think when I played Doom, like Wolfenstein was very cool. But because it was it was like one of the first person shooters, and for anybody out there that's into trivia, there was a Wolfenstein that was like almost like Berserk, which is another arcade game, and then they came out with Wolfenstein 3D, which was the precursor to Doom, which was a precursor to like Half-Life.
Yeah,
I'll get into those.
Yeah, and all the other FPSs that we play now.
But let's take a little side. Let's go a little side
journey.
Yeah, a little side journey, because when Doug and I first became friends, we were in.
Was that 91?
91, 92.
Yeah,
probably 91 is when we first met, and then, and at the time, you're in. Well, let's just say that occasionally
I would be at your house a lot.
Yeah, you come over and hang out at my house, and I had a Sega.
Yep.
And
Sega Genesis.
Sega Genesis, the old Genesis, and there was this kind of competition between Nintendo and Sega.
Mm-hmm.
I opted to go down the Sega line. I did play a lot of. It's on my list here, but I played a lot of Sonic, the first Sonic game.
Mm-hmm. I remember you really liking that.
Really
you liked that
it.
a lot more than I did. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like platforming games, and so I finished it. I've never been like a completist. I'm not with a game like that because. But the big game we played a lot was
Road Rash. Man, we played that. Oh God, literally all night sometimes.
Oh yeah,
all night.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was blurry-eyed and fuzzy the next day at work.
It was a game of like incremental success. Like you would be like, oh my God,
funny beat Viper. Yeah,
it's like this game. Fuck you.
Yeah, it's true. That was massive frustration. With that game.
We played the hell out of Road Rash, man. So,
yeah. So if anybody is unfamiliar, you're riding motorcycles and you're trying to beat up the guy next. It's a motorcycle race, but you have clubs and chains and stuff.
It's graphically horrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But at the time we loved it.
Yeah, we did.
And there are spiritual successors to it.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. But boy, we did play a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, after that, like, so again, that's another one of those eras. that was kind of magical. You know what I mean? Like there was stuff going on in both of our lives that was a little crazy, but yeah, that was the reprieve, man. That was the hideout.
Yeah, we could almost have an episode about like the part time in our life, man. But
there was a lot going on.
Well, there's some funny stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But then after that, like, so when we were both in Key West at the time, and after that, I ended up going out to California, and when I was stationed out there, and I got into Tekken 3 at that time. This is when I bought my PlayStation. We got into Tekken 3. And or I think it was 3. No, 3 was later. I can't remember what year this was, but there was a time that I was so hooked on Tekken 3 that I was, whatever ship that I was on, we pulled into port, and I had the house to myself, and so I invited a couple guys over, and we literally played Tekken 3 for 2 days nonstop. Somebody would just pass out on the sofa. And we constantly ordering pizza. And this wasn't like, I wasn't one of those party animal drink till you drop type people. I don't even know if there was beer there, to be honest. It was mostly we were eating pizza and playing Tekken 3 literally for 2 days. 2 full days. Overnight, the whole thing. And
that's a combat. That's a
yeah, it's just a fighting game. Yeah, face to face, Mortal Kombat.
Mortal
type.
Kombat, I was going to say. Which, by the way, another game in the arcade at 8 quarters like crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And that took me forever to learn those stupid kill moves because they weren't listed anywhere. You had to learn them from your friends. You know what I mean? Like left, right, up, down, red button. You know, whatever it was. But yeah, so Tekken 3, man, that one I sunk my teeth into that one hard.
That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that was crazy.
But like I said, I mentioned I could, because now we're like in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And Doom, I can't remember when Doom came out. I think it was like I wrote it down. Let me see. I think it was like 93. 92.
Yeah, I never played that one very much.
Yeah,
I missed the boat. I missed the boat on that one.
Well, and again, because there's certain games I like. I like platformers. I also really love first person shooters. And
I do now. I just didn't know about it back then. I think.
Yeah. Oh, who did? I mean, but it's just and I think Wolfenstein 3D was all like one level, and then Doom, they use some sort of like, magic, I don't know, but they were able to give it some depth, like you had stairs and whatnot. And if you ever notice on that game, there's nothing ever under the stairs because they just basically kind of stretch,
Right.
And then they came out with like Quake, and Quake actually added that, it was true 3D.
Right.
But I know a game that I know that you like parts of it, and this was a game that kind of again moved me forward, which was Unreal.
Oh, I have it on my list.
Yeah.
I would say, other than modern games, there's a couple modern games I have on my list. Other than that, that's probably where I spent more time than any other game.
You played Tournament a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, literally thousands of hours. I would bet thousands of hours.
Wow. And did you play the story? The Unreal Tournament story game?
Yeah. I played the whole thing through.
Yeah. I got to tell you, again, this is one that I've gone back and revisited, and I'm kind of like, I kind of wish I wouldn't have, because it doesn't hold up. It's that's okay. But
did you know Unreal Tournament is actually still live? You can still play it.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we live in this world of Fortnite.
It's 20
and all
years.
That kind of stuff.
It's 20 years.
But that was see, I enjoy playing multiplayer, but one of my favorite stories about why I don't play multiplayer is I was playing Quake multiplayer, and I think at the time the best gun on the Quake multiplayer was like the nail gun, and I had the nail gun, and I was standing at the very end of like a very long corridor, and the melee weapon in there was a shovel, and so this corridor was long enough for me to see people coming around the corner, and I see this guy come around the corner, and he's just a dot, he's just a few pixels, right? And I'm thinking, I'm going to light this cat up, right? And so I start like dumping nails at him. Nail gun's just a chain gun, right?
Right.
And by the way, again, I digress, but the soundtrack was for Quake was done by Trent Reznor, and all the nail ammo had the 9-inch nails, their brand. So anyway, so this guy's coming at me, and I'm just like ripping, and he is like climbing walls and jumping, and I can't hit him. He covers his distance. It takes him a few seconds, right? Yep. He jumps over me and then brains me with the shovel.
Bing.
He just comes there, kank, and I'm thinking, all right, multiplayer is not my thing.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I should have lit this guy in half. I could have cut him in half. Yeah. Now, again, was he cheating? Probably not. Who knows? But I can tell you, man, he was laying down some moves, man, and I was just like, So
Yeah.
I played the story for Unreal, and you and I dabbled in the tournament.
Yeah. I played. Gosh, man, I don't know. I ended up being one of those guys in Unreal Tournament that
Really?
I was coming in first or second or third almost every time.
Nice.
And it's just familiarity with the maps and
Right.
familiarity with where the good guns are and how quickly you can get stuff.
Sure.
And then, in that game there was health packs you could pick up. So when you start getting beat up, you grab a health pack, and if you know where all that stuff is. Even if you're getting shot on your way to the health pack, you grab the health pack and you stay alive. So
Right.
then you kill that guy. So your kill ratio goes up. But I could not tell you how many hours I have in the game. It's ridiculous.
Well, and again, I think you're hitting on something that's kind of important about those games. And to be clear, I mean, I've played Counter-Strike, I've played Team Fortress.
I suck at Counter-Strike,
yeah.
dude.
Okay.
Man.
Yeah.
There's only one game I'm worse at, and that was, what is that one where it's all online, massive multi-online. It's a pretty recent game.
Fortnite?
No, it's before Fortnite. Anyway, carry on. I'll think of it and I'll come back.
So, but I've dabbled in all those, and it's just, but you really have to have a level of commitment.
Sorry, Battlefield. That's what I'm thinking of. The first Battlefield.
Yeah.
Literally, spawn, die. Spawn, die.
It's
brutal.
God,
man, I was just getting annihilated in that game.
I'm just not okay with it, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't care if somebody, calls me a name or whatever, shit. But but the truth is, I'm not going to, you can online bully me all you want.
Yeah.
But
you gotta have, to me, you gotta have fun. Yeah. And there's no fun when you die every 2 seconds. Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
So anyway, Unreal, I finished the game. I thought it was amazing.
So here's one for you. This was on the gosh, I want to say I got a PC by now. I can't remember. You got the computer. You could even look this up. But the game was called Delta Force.
Yeah, by the way, computers. That's my world. That's my place.
That's your jam nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well,
so
I have PlayStation now. You know that.
Yeah. But I think
Delta Force.
Delta Force was the name of the game, and it was basically a first-person shooter, army based. You were a Delta Force guy, and they gave you mission. Typical setup. You gave you missions, and you had to go accomplish them. And man, that game just for some reason it got its hooks in me. The missions were hard enough to be challenging, but they were not impossible.
1998.
Yeah, so you could accomplish the missions, but one of the things that they started, to the best of my knowledge, it was one of the earlier games that had this, is they had the mini map. Mm-hmm. So when you were approaching your mission target, you could see where the bad guys are. And of course, if you were patient, which I like sniper type games where you have to crawl around the grass and stuff, you could watch the guards had a pattern. And I loved figuring out that pattern and finding my window, and I don't know how sophisticated, like nowadays, it's super obvious, in so many games, but you
mean the AI?
Yeah. Well, the AI is really good nowadays.
Sure.
So their patterns aren't always easy to detect, but it's easy to tell when NPCs are doing a certain something, And back then, I think it was so linear that like a guy would really, literally, I would count like, okay, he takes 10 steps and turns around and goes back and takes 10 steps and turns around and goes back. So I would get to the point where, okay, on step 3, I'm going, you know what I mean? Whatever it was. Right. And I love that analytical side to it. But I was sucked into Delta Force for many long nights.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, and for me, we're kind of getting into places. There's probably not a whole lot of other games going forward where there are games that ate up a lot of time for me. Mm-hmm. Now, one that kind of for me that was layered like right on top of Unreal, like there was Unreal, and then this game was like right after, like literally, like I was still a faithful follower of the Unreal Engine, and then Half-Life came out.
Mm. And I remember that because you turned me on to Half-Life. I didn't know anything about it, and I remember you going ballistic over it.
Well, the things that made for one, the story's amazing.
Yeah,
and one thing I think honestly that kind of put it over the top. And one thing about and again, played the game, and I'm like, okay, everything that came before this, in my subjective opinion, is before Half-Life, and everything is after.
It's a marker, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, the story was great for the time. The visuals were pretty impressive. They did not have cutscenes, so in other words, like you kind of assume the identity of like the protagonist, Gordon Freeman, and he didn't talk. When everybody talked to him. He moved through the scenario. when he went from one area to the other, you may get like a pause while it loaded, but you didn't get like that thing where like suddenly it would flash.
Yeah.
And another thing too is it's epic in that, it starts in one area, it just go. I mean, like
it's giant.
It's giant. You're on this massive map where, like, you go from the lab to the subway to the.
But the other thing I remember about that game is that you don't get a map.
No,
you just know it's very much self discovery in that game, and there's no like.
I mean, he's got a suit on. That's what gives you like your health and all that kind of stuff. But you're not overwhelmed by data.
Yeah, information.
Nobody's holding your hand.
But there was also no like. There was no teaching. Like, they didn't teach you how to play the game. They just laid it out there, and you had to go figure it out.
Right. And finding a new, more powerful weapon was a big
challenging,
deal. Yeah, it was a big deal. And you started with a crowbar.
Yeah. I remember that, bashing those robots with the crowbar.
Yeah, the head crabs and all that stuff. Yeah, and so, and that was probably like, and again, after that, now, if we kind of go forward, there's other first-person shooters that I probably devote a lot of time to. But that was one that again, it's like, well, I got to go to work in 2 hours, but I didn't no reason for me to go
one more level, no
more, so
But it's funny, man, because there are those pivotal games, and for me, Unreal was most definitely one of them, for sure. But then I remember when you start talking multiplayer, me and you and the other two knuckleheads played Left 4 Dead. I know I'm jumping ahead here, but we played Left 4 Dead. Man, I don't know.
I love Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, how many hours do we sink into that thing? Because you guys were playing. What's that superhero one that you guys were playing?
I was going to get to that.
Yeah, you guys were playing that a lot, and then when Left 4 Dead came out, and then we all four jumped into that, and I thought that was great, man. And the internet was fast enough at that time where we could play and without, there wasn't too many glitches or anything.
No, it was fine. Yeah, it was a great game.
Yeah.
I mean, Left 4 Dead, but so the game we talked about, the super. I met my online, which at the time they were online friends, now they're friends. So, and there's two that we play with normally, but I had tons of friends that played with, but now there's like a core 3 friends that I still play with, not City of Heroes anymore, but meeting them aside and being online, and a lot of people at the time were kind of eaten up by World of Warcraft and things like that. But I never got too much into World of Warcraft. I played it, but whatever, right? But City of Heroes definitely was a game, and people may or may not be familiar with it, but it's exactly what Doug said. It was a superhero multiplayer game, massively multiplayer online game, and but I had my community and I just played, but that is definitely a game, and large maps, lots of missions, lots of stuff to do. You could play it however you wanted. Probably one of the things that my friends that I play with, they are definitely individuals that are all about like, moving the needle as quickly as possible. Let's get this person leveled up. I'm probably more like, it's a comic book game, so let me kind of, I just want to read the story, and they're not down with that. We're moving. When you play with them, they're moving, and it makes it kind of tough in a multiplayer game because they're like, you're like, wait up, guys, wait for me.
And let's put it like this: your relation to them is my relation to you. So I'm 3 steps behind those guys because I'm behind you in that. I move even slower. Like, I really am an explorer when it comes to those games.
Well, I am. I mean, I tell you, I mean, I'm not a total completist when it comes to games, but if I bought this game, I want to see what this game has to offer. But anyway, so City of Heroes was huge, but there was, I could tell stories about times where like, oh my God, I got to go to work tomorrow.
No doubt.
And one thing about all these games, you talk about like raids and all this, there were times like where we would get involved like in raids being like a chain of missions that we have to do to get to a certain point. And we start like at 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, I don't know when this is going to be done.
Yeah.
And you're estimating will maybe be done like at 11 or 12.
Yeah, a couple hours. Yeah,
and
right.
the next thing you know, it's 4 in the morning, and you're like, I've got too much invested into this.
Yeah, I can't stop now. Yeah.
I don't care if I get fired.
Yeah.
It's
sad but true.
It is. Anyway,
but it's funny because I think that the thing about those games, you said the magic word, the thing about those games that all of us, I think, like the most is the community part. That's what the MMOs are all about.
Yeah.
You get around a bunch of people that you enjoy playing with, But that's the part that I find. I don't think I'm antisocial, but I struggle to connect with people in those games that are actually most people just don't want to go as slow as I go, man, and I really don't care how long it takes. I want to check everything out.
Right.
Even modern games today, you know how big the maps are on these damn
know.
things? They're massive, but it takes me forever, but I don't really care. I
Right.
enjoy the exploration and find out what's in the nooks and crannies, and sometimes there's some cool Easter eggs, you know?
Right.
So,
Right. No, I'm with you. I mean, I'd probably say we're probably on the same page with that.
Yeah.
I do know, like, sometimes when I like you talk about, like, all-nighter games, there are actually times when I have to say, okay, now's the time to go to bed.
Yeah.
Only because I'm not taking the time I think I need to like, explore.
Yeah. The game will suffer, not your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It has nothing to do with that.
It's sad. I think I roped you into Tribes, didn't I, for a little while?
Very briefly.
Yeah. That was another one that I just love, that game. Just
Right.
it's really action oriented, but I like the concept. You know, you could fly around, but your flight time was very limited, so you had to use it sparingly, you know, and that kind of stuff. And that was a fun one. But
right.
So of course Left 4 Dead, and then single player, slow moving, stealthy stuff. I got into Splinter Cell, and I love that one, man, because that's right up my alley. That's exactly the kind of game that I like.
Stealth.
Yeah, lots of cool weapons, great graphics, especially for the time. The mission was interesting enough for me. It's like verging on that Delta Force thing. And so I could take my time, and they gave you all the tools that you needed to never have to get into a conflict. If you could manage it. It's not easy.
It's hard.
Yeah,
hard
it's not easy, but you could do it, you know, and that's how Hitman is nowadays. You know, you assassinate who you're supposed to assassinate, but you don't have to go in guns blazing, you know. You can actually avoid all that, but it's harder. But yeah, I really like that one. And then so I got to talk about this one, because to me this to me is probably the number one video game. This and Unreal Tournament. Horizon Zero Dawn. I always call it Event Horizon, because that's in the game, that's what it's called, but the game itself is called Zero Dawn. I looked, so I had that on PS4, because we're on 5 now, right? I had it on PS4, and just before I sold my PS4, I was playing the game, and I popped open the stats window, and I had 600 hours in that game.
Wow.
And that's probably round 2. I played it twice, because when you finish it, you can go and you keep all your stuff, but you play again. But yeah, so I had over 600 hours in that game.
You played it through more than once?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think overall I played it 3 times through.
Well, you've loaned it to me. I haven't played it yet, though.
Yeah. It's, and you know, I could go on and on about what I like about the game, but to me, the magic word is balance. There's a great balance between good story, good graphics, good likable characters, good bad guys, good fighting scenes. There's enough fighting to make it interesting. There's also enough side quests to do other stuff when you get tired of fighting, and so on and so on. And the concept is good, and I like everything about that game.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that, only because I think that's probably the downfall of a lot of games anyway, especially games that are kind of like, we're talking about single player, but like multiplayer games. Like you know they devote a lot to player versus player, or player versus enemy, or exploit, and you know, like I don't play PvP games.
Same here.
I just don't. To me, that's and that's a real, you know, that's a small fraction of individuals that play video games.
Yeah.
But you know, and like I said, I don't like to get beat on. You
Yeah.
know? So. But yeah, if you're going to have a PvP game, you need to have some sort of component where somebody like a over 50-year-old guy can roll in there and not get pounded by a 14-year-old.
Maybe that should be a setting. Well, they ask you your age.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not 14. I am going to get my ass kicked.
Yeah, I'm not 14. I'm playing this game for 2 hours before I go to bed.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then a couple others that I had. One is pretty obvious, Witcher 3. That was a super popular game. And that's interesting. My kid turned me on to that. He actually turned me on to Horizon as well. But when he turned me on to Witcher 3, I think I went to GameStop and bought it used for $5 or something. You know, it's long past its prime. But when I first started playing, I didn't like it at all.
Witcher 3?
Yeah, Witcher 3. I didn't like it. It was too complicated. There was like all these potions you can do and all this crazy, you know, it's very complex. Sort of like D&D-ish, you know. And I didn't like it, mostly because I didn't understand it. The story starts in the middle of the story, so I didn't know any of the backstory. I didn't know anything, and so I go into it, and I was like, ugh, I was kind of like overwhelmed and confused, and so I didn't really like it very much. But I stuck it out and I played a little bit, and then I started to kind of like it, and then I started to learn how to use the potions and learn how to use equipment and all that, and then I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I got sucked in. And then I started playing Gwent, which is a game within the game. It's a little card game within the game. Now, I was retarded. I played every person in the game that could play Gwent. So I just went around the whole map, and everybody that could play Gwent, I played against them and stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, that was a good one.
Cool.
And I liked the series they made as well. That turned out pretty good. I
liked the first season. Yeah, I haven't seen the second season yet.
Yeah.
Have you watched second season?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Witcher 3 was recommended to me, like life, you know what I mean? Just be able to, and a lot of these games do require that you set aside other stuff just so you can devote time to it,
Yeah.
I just finished, we talked about this, I finished Dying Light 2 recently, and I burned a lot of time into that one. But again, not anything that, like there's a lot of games that I've played and that I've liked, but there's very few that are like oh man, it's
can't wait.
2 o'clock in the morning, and what am I doing right now?
So what's like that for you that's modern instead of the old games? What do you got?
I don't know. Well, I started messing around Destiny 2, and I've had a few nights where I've played that.
The game's like endless, isn't it?
Yeah. Kind of. Well, I think it's been around a while.
But isn't it open world?
Yeah, components of it are. It's a multiplayer game, but it's got kind of single player, kind of single player angles. So there's things you can do. There's a community and raids and all that kind of stuff. But you asked that question. It's really hard for me to answer it, even though I've been playing it now for about 6 months, 8 months. I'm still peeling back the layers, and they've done a lot of expansions, and I think they've done, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7, something like that. I don't know, but the earlier expansions are no longer accessible.
Oh, okay.
So like right now, there's areas you can go. It's it's kind of an interesting story, but it's kind of one of those stories that's almost like intentionally deep and nebulous. You know what I mean? A lot of So I'm not into that.
Okay.
But I do. But the weapons are fun. It's a I forget what they call it, but it's there's so many damn weapons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And gear drops and also it's also one of those games. I don't know if you can appreciate this. Like they have like sniper rifles and bows and chain guns and machine guns and submachine guns and shotguns and like you'll pick up a weapon and when you use it to kill something, it's just ultimately satisfying. You know what I mean? Like when you squeeze a trigger on a sniper rifle and you behead somebody with a 50 cal shell, it feels like you've done that. And again, everybody out there that's like freaking out about gun control, don't worry, it's all good. I know it's a video game, but yeah.
Tony, don't be sure. I can't get Tony to come and shoot with me, so yeah.
I'll go.
Okay.
We
you buy the ammo. Yeah, you buy the ammo.
Well, now
it's expensive.
I can't get him to go. I can't get Tony to smoke crack with me. You bring the rocks.
You bring the rocks.
Well, all right. Okay. I think it's kind of weird, but.
Yeah, knowing Tony, he's going to show up with rocks. It's not going to be crack rocks. It's just rocks.
These are in my yard. I'm not high at all.
Anyways, so there's another game that I played recently that I don't know if you've ever even heard of, but if you haven't, you need to check it out. You can get it for your PlayStation. It's called Inside. Oh man, it is a little. I'm pretty sure it's a little indie game, side scroller. So I know you'll like that. Super cool graphics, really dark, and it's got occasional splashes of red. So it's sort of like that selective color photography, with the lips are red and everything's black and white. But it's got a really, really cool feel to it, and it's a puzzle type side scroller. A little bit of action. I think there's a few jump puzzles in there and stuff like that. But it's just engrossing. I mean, it's a visually stunning game, and a lot of it is silhouetted, so you can't. I mean, it's not even you can't even see it. And then so you'll get when you first start playing, it's like, okay, it's kind of cool, and then you get along. It's like, okay, this is a cool game. It's interesting, right? I'm gonna keep going, and then you get to like 2/3 of the way through, and it takes this turn, and you're like, holy crap, man! This thing just opened up so cool, and it is weird. It might be French. It's got that feel to it, That the French, they come up with some weird stuff, man. It's got
my gosh, you sound like such a redneck there.
Oh, whatever.
It might be French. I don't know.
It could be French.
It could be something. Maybe I don't know.
I was eating French fries and I was playing it.
And they were good.
Yeah. So, so anyway, check it out. It's called Inside.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little indie game.
Yeah, and and just kind of thinking forward, or just thinking about what our topic is here. I would say that again, it's not that I ever really stopped playing video games. It's just probably from a period of about maybe like 2005 to like now. There's lots of games that I played to completion, lots of games, but and I just a few like I love you mentioned Inside being a side scroller. I guess it's probably got platform elements. Love those games. Love them. Not great at them, but I love them. But I played a few of those. I will say one game I did probably, and I forgot to mention, I played XCOM, the more recent one, not the one from back in the. It's an alien. Aliens are invading. It's a turn-based shooter, which I like. Okay. Because again, it doesn't require me to be too overly coordinated.
Yes,
it's more strategic. Yes. And so I played that one. But after we got the PlayStations, I definitely. You get the PlayStation, whatever the PlayStation Pass is, I forget what it's called, and I downloaded a few games on there and played those to completion. I need to get back in there, but life.
Yeah, man. I think going forward, I'm a little worried. I think we've reached the pinnacle in my mind anyway of most games. And I think we're on some sort of a downward turn. I don't know if it's going to be cyclical and we'll come back up at some point.
Why did you say that?
Well, why I say it is because, like, if you look at a game like Gran Turismo, for example, that's a long-running franchise, right? Started in the 90s, and I played every single one of those damn things, except that I think they came out one not long ago called Sport a few years back, and I didn't play that one, but the rest of them I played. Huge fan of Gran Turismo. Loved it. The physics on that, to me, are better than any other racing game. Well, outside of real simulators, right? Because that's kind of a thing now. And the new one came out, and I got it. I was so hyped up for Gran Turismo 7, and I started playing it. And again, the graphics are just jaw-dropping. I'm not even drinking bourbon. What the hell am I doing slurring? Jesus. But anyway, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful graphics. But the gameplay is not that great outside of actual racing. There's a bunch of crap they make you go and do, and you can't get around it. Like you have to go, you go see some guy at a cafe, and he gives you your next assignment, so to speak. Right. Go collect these 2 Chevrolet cars, and then you have to go race to get those cars. And that sort of tight structure, I don't like. I want it to be more open world-ish, like in the previous versions. You could start a career, and then you had to race your way through all these different countries and all these different, like real life tracks, and it was a progression deal. But at any time, you could peel off and, just go race your buddies or go in arcade mode if you want, which you can still do on this one. But they're forcing you down this path, and I don't know, I just didn't like it. Yeah, and it's kind of the same with Horizon Zero Dawn, the second version of it. The game is massive, man. It is huge, and they've cleaned up a lot of stuff, but to me, the story part of it kind of fell apart. Like it's amazing, but it's so freaking complicated that you lose track. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just an idiot. I don't know.
Well, to that point, and I agree with this, is that like when I used to play, like a role playing game, like going back to the 90s or whatever, it wasn't necessarily linear, but it was confined. And so I couldn't just go off the beaten path and do a huge world. I knew that I kind of had a mission, and I will agree, like today's video games, like you mentioned The Witcher 3, I did dabble in The Witcher 3, but I'm just like, I do not have time to I like I said, I'm a bit of a completist, so I just don't have the time to devote to this world that's twice as big as the world I live in. I just and a lot of times I'll walk away from a game. Like even recently, I walked away from. We're talking about Destiny 2. I walked away from that. I came back. I'm like, what button makes me do backflips?
Exactly.
And or whatever. And so I think I'm.
Well, The Witcher is very much like this. Is really complicated controls.
Yeah. And again, you're always like opening up the screen. I'm 50, folks. You know what I mean? So I'm opening the screen, going like, "What do I got to do again? How do I get
You're over 50.
I know I'm over 50. So are you. Anyway,
whatever.
How do I put ammo in this damn gun?
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but yeah, that's a big part of it. I have a limited amount of time. We need to I want to get but I just kind of I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying is that those kinds of things are are a bit overwhelming. Another thing, about today's games, and you talk about maybe trends that need to die, or something, is, like City Heroes, for example, which is a game I devoted a lot of time to. Okay. I bought the game. I think it was a AAA title, so it probably at the time cost me like $45. Got it on CDs or DVDs or whatever. Loaded it on my system. That's how things happened in 2004. Paid $15 a month. All the content was mine. Right now, like in MMOs, they're and I'm doing quotation fingers, free, but you pay the microtransactions, and I just feel like in a way that's kind of a jip. I don't want to have to pay to win. And people argue that, oh, you're not paying to win, you're just paying for skins or whatever. Let's be honest. If I have to pay $8 to do a mission because that's a mission pack or whatever like that, you're kind of fucking me. Here I just want the game.
I haven't done it and I won't do it. That's one of those things, and whatever, judge all you want, but I've never actually purchased an app either on my phone.
Oh, really?
I've never spent one penny on an app because I feel like it's a jip, and I don't even like free apps. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Right, get off my lawn.
I was watching was it The League on was on Hulu, but it was on FX, and one of the guys made a joke one time. The show, by the way, I like The League. Okay, it's not the greatest show ever. The first season was great. It progressively got worse. But anyway, with that said, one of the guys who had his phone, he goes, "Damn, I hate these new phones. I just want an app called Phone."
I like that joke. I can identify with that. Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there's just no getting around it. It's video games are evolving.
Right.
And it's fine. Evolve away. At some point, if you evolve to the point where I don't like you anymore, I'm just not going to play you. There's enough. But this is the reason I like physical media. I don't like downloading games.
Right.
I don't remember when the last time this happened to me. I think it might have been the latest version of Horizon that I bought. West. What's it called? West? Not Wild West. Whatever.
Something like that.
Forbidden West. Yeah.
Okay.
So I buy the thing on Amazon, and the package shows up in the mail, and I open it all up, and it's not a disc. It's a download. I'm like, well, what the shit, man?
That's crazy.
I want the disc. And again, maybe it's just me. Same reason I like vinyl records and all the rest of it. So I know I'm dinosauring it here, but
that's all good.
At the end of the day, the story still has to be good. The playability has to be good. And
the last physical media I bought for video games was Red Dead 2.
Okay, that was a cool game.
It's a great game. Yeah.
I didn't like that switch in the middle though. When the guy dies.
Oh, I didn't know that. I haven't got there yet.
Ah, fuck.
It's okay. I don't care.
Never mind.
Dude, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, again, you're gonna have to go. You have to go through a lot of it. I opened up a lot of areas in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
But, all right. Yeah. So that's all the games I got.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good conversation.
Yeah.
We had kind of an idea, but it kind of went in different directions. I dig it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've probably been going for a while, so let's call it.
I think it's time to go eat a hamburger.
Something like that. Yeah. We're still, again, we're recording multiple episodes around the 4th. Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you again for joining us. We'll be posting another one here real soon.
Yep. See you later.
Later. Bye.